So I think quite a few people have been waiting for more of an enduro build with this excellent Avinox motor. And here it is. Here's the longest travel e-bike, 180 with the DJI Avinox system. I think what we're getting now with these DJI systems is very slick looking electric mountain bikes that have that nice slim down tube, the compact motor, but full power. In fact, the most powerful system that's out there on the market with big battery and all the cool stuff that goes along with that. And I think these, compared to the Bosch bikes or the other full power bikes, they almost look like lightweight e-bikes, but they're not. They're just full power, massively powerful bikes that have this nice silhouette to them, this nice slim look to them. And that's really been made possible by the DJI Slim battery. It's long, thin, and it's pretty slim, although it does put the weight fairly high, which I'll touch on a little bit later in the riding characteristics. Compared to the Bosch and the Specialized, they use like shorter, stubbier batteries, like really kind of thick and girthy, that make the frames like look really chunky. They just have to wrap those carbon frames or alloy frames around those bigger batteries. So aesthetically, this new breed of DJI bikes look really pleasing to the eye. By the way, I do keep calling it DJI motor, but they've kind of rebranded and they're trying to move away from the DJI branding. So it's called the Avinox motor system. It's so difficult to not call it DJI because it's so well known as that system. So when I talk about DJI, I actually mean the Avinox system. This has got an early motor on it and it says DJI on it, but all of the new bikes with this system have removed all of the DJI branding and they say Avinox on like the display, the motor casing, the controllers, all of that stuff. And I suspect some of it's to do with the fact that they can't sell DJI stuff in the States. I'm in the UK, so it doesn't really affect me so much, but I'm sure that they really want to get into that market. I'm speculating, I don't know, but perhaps some of that branding is to try and distance themselves from being a DJI product and now it's an Avinox product. So let's get back to this bike. It ticks a lot of boxes. We've got 180 fork, 180 on the rear. This is running full Öhlins and it's running full coil. So Öhlins coil in the fork and obviously you can see the Öhlins coil on the rear. It's got an 800 watt hour removable battery. It's a little bit of a faff to remove. It's not the easiest, but it is removable. And we've got like the full power Avinox system with up to 1000 watts of peak, 105 Newton meters, 120 Newton meters in the boost mode. Loads of cool updates that have happened to that Avinox system over the past few months that really enhance how the bike feels and how it rides. But essentially we've got a burly enduro mini downhill bike with that big travel, with that really powerful motor. And aesthetically it looks great and it comes in at a reasonable weight. Like this isn't a lightweight by any means. If I put it on the scales now, we'll be able to see that the weight's around 23.4 kilos. And that's with gravity tires, Öhlins coil. I've got lightweight wheels on there, but I've got gravity tires and stuff. So it's a respectable weight. It's kind of up there with what you'd find on a top end Bosch bike with the same kind of system. Like the DJI system weight as a whole isn't massively lighter than the Bosch system. It might be about 300, 400 grams. So the majority of the weight of the bike build comes from the rest of the components and the frame. But I think 23 and a bit kilos on this size large is pretty respectable. Now, a couple of points to note with these Crestline bikes. Number one, these are all sold out. They did a limited edition run of like 100. They sold out pretty much overnight, but they are going to be doing more. So this is all valid for anyone that's interested in this bike in the future. They are super customizable. Now this bike is probably the most customizable bike in terms of the size that I've ever had. And also you can do things like head angle changes, reach adjust. It's got removable dropouts on the rear so you can extend the chainstay. It's right from about 445 right up to 460. And that's all via dropouts. So you just unbolt the rear and you put a new dropout in and you can run a 27.5, 29er front and rear. There's so many options that you can do to configure this to how you like it. You can run it 180 like I've been doing. You can run it as short travel. It's got a flip chip. So if you like tinkering with bikes, this is a brilliant option. But if you like having it just out of the crate as it comes, by the recommendations from Crestline, it's still going to be an absolute ripper. The Avinox system's all built into the top tube. You've got a nice little touch screen on there. I've taken off the right-hand control remote. I just use the one on the left for the mode control. And the Avinox system is so powerful, man. It's like, yeah, it can be really, really powerful if you want it to. And if you run it in that super high power mode, you rinse through the battery, you might be good for 90 minutes of riding. But you can definitely tone it down. So in the settings, you just scale it right down, scale down the amount of assistance that the motor's going to give you. It's all torque-based. I've heard some people mention that it's a cadence-based system. No, it's a torque-based system. There's loads of sensors in there. There's an inertia measurement unit in there as well that can determine the angle of the bike. And it's quite a smart system in how it delivers the power. Although when a lot of people are riding these systems, it's all dialed up. But the great thing is in the app, you can dial all these things right down. So you can tell it that you as a rider want to be putting in loads of leg power for it to be able to unleash that full 1000 watts, or you can dial it down to 750 or whatever you want. So there's loads of customization with the bike itself, the frame, whether you want to run 29 or 27.5, chainstay length, all of that stuff. And then the Avinox system itself, there's loads of customizations on too. Now, this has got an 800 battery in. It can also run a 600 battery. A little bit about removing the battery. It's going to take probably 5 minutes, and it's a little bit fiddly because you've got some small fiddly bolts. It's not like one big Allen bolt and you pull it out. But the fact is that the battery can be removed. So if you want to do a battery swap, or if you want to take it abroad or whatever, the battery can be taken out. As far as I know, it's the only DJI bike on the market with a fully removable battery. So you can swap it out, you can take a spare on a ride for a really, really big day. So some component stuff on the bike. I've got these Newman wheels, they're carbon wheels, they're Newman Phase 30 wheels. And they're one of the lightest wheel sets out in the market. They weigh around 1.7 kilos in a mullet form, which is pretty light, and they're category 5 rated, so that's like full-on enduro, downhill stuff pretty much. And the thing that I like about it the most is the hub is really quiet. So decent quality wheel set from Newman, never used them before, but they sent these to test and I thought I'd build this bike up with them. I mentioned it already, but Öhlins coil on the rear, Öhlins coil on the front. It's a large size frame. Reach is actually a little bit longer than what they said on their website. When I measured it, the reach was more like 495. I've got a 5mm reach adjust headset, and I'm running the chainstay in the longest setting. It's 460. So the front center to the rear center is quite well balanced in how it rides. 460 chainstay sounds colossally long, but when the bikes are getting bigger and longer and more travel, I find that those longer chainstays really help with front end grip. So how does it ride? Well, climbing, I'll touch on that first. Going up stuff, regular fire road climbs and just those boring things that you want to dispatch of really quickly to get to the trails. It's so quick. It's so quick up the hills. The Bosch, even with that new 750 update and 100 Newton meters, is nowhere near in the league that this is in. Now, I know there's some stuff on power and regulations and all of that stuff, but it is fully legal in the UK. It's a 250 watt nominal rated motor, like they all are, but it's got 1000 watts of peak instead of 750 like the Bosch has. Who knows if that will change in the future, but as of now, these are fully legal. I saw quite a few comments on my Instagram saying that this is illegal in the UK. It's not, it's fully legal. It's just a really powerful e-bike, but getting up stuff is so quick. When it comes to technical climbs, I'm still like on the fence with the technical climbing ability of the Avinox motor. Now, I've got a long chainstay on the bike, so I'm very well perched forward. I'm getting no front end lift, and it's not the actual bike geo. I think some of it comes from the characteristics of how instantly it delivers power and the overrun that the motor gives, or sometimes doesn't give it. Sometimes the overrun gives me like a decent amount of overrun, sometimes it kind of stops halfway. And I think the algorithm needs to be improved specifically for the overrun and the technical climbing ability, because on the Bosch bike, comparing it to that bike is 100% repeatable in how it delivers the power and the overrun specifically. When you're kind of just coming up to a big rock, and you want to get the bike over, you give it a little dab of crank input, and the Bosch just kind of nicely powers you over it, and it's so consistent all of the time, it just works. Whereas this, I'm finding sometimes gives me a bit of a surge, sometimes gives me a bit of overrun, sometimes gives me overrun and then cuts off halfway. I've got the latest firmware, so it's a tough one. It's not right now the most competent technical climber, but all of that can be changed with software updates. And I already mentioned how quick Amflow are at providing updates, and all those sensors are in here, so I've no doubt that they can get it. But there are still some sections I find it a little bit tougher to kind of get up. But when it comes to like non-techie stuff, like just chunky route stuff that is challenging, you just use the brute speed and the power of the bike to get up. It just like launches up stuff. It's so good at that kind of thing. So cruising around on this bike, I've done maybe 10, 15 rides on it easily in like Surrey Hills, my local trails, Triscombe, some downhill stuff. And the bike pretty much eats up everything. Now, I've got to say that this bike is a little bit too short for me. Even with the reach at 495, the wheelbase at 1310, the front center feels a little bit too short. It's 850 front center, and I do find it a little bit like wants to tuck in a little bit on some of the steeper techie, especially when it's loose descents. There was no XL versions available, so this is like on the shorter side for me. I'm just going to add that in just for context. The front does feel a little bit twitchy, and I put that just down to the front center and the reach size. Hopefully I will be able to test a XL, so I think that some of those things will be remedied. So the bike in this size with a long rear center and the 495 reach feels like really like poppy and playful to me because I'm riding a smaller bike. I can like lift up the front, I've got some high-rise 1-up 50mm bars on there, but I do find on the steeper stuff that I'm losing a little bit of that feeling out the front. Now, because that battery is quite long, I do wonder if some of that weight at the top changes the feel when you're kind of moving it side to side, compared to something like a Bosch version of this, where the battery is lower and there's more weight down low. I do think it does contribute to the way that the bike feels. Certainly, I can feel that, I think I can feel that weight higher up. I'm not 100% sure if it's a placebo thing, just knowing that the weight is up here. If you think the weight kind of goes right up to the top of the head tube, where on their Bosch version of this, it's a little bit more lower down and the center of gravity is lower. So I think it changes the maneuvering side to side characteristics of it. And I do think I can notice that. Does that make the bike worse? Well, maybe it makes it a little bit different to change direction and tip in. I'm not 100% sure it's like that different or different enough to put me off like a bike like this, because the pros far outweigh the slight disbenefits you get from that longer battery. So on the fast flowy trails and techie descents, this bike absolutely rips. 29 up front, mullet out the back, coil front and rear. That Olin stuff is so good. I've never used a coil fork before, and the sensitivity off the top of this fork is just next level. No air shock or no air fork can get close to this. Now, when you're riding at full pace, it does feel quite similar to an air fork, and surprisingly, I've not bottomed this out. I did read online that some people have bottomed out the Olin's forks with the coils, but it's actually been pretty good for me. So there are a few things about the bike that I would like to see improved. First off is the rattle from this motor is driving me nuts. It is so noisy. And rattly, especially because I'm used to the Bosch version, which is like super quiet and silent. Now, I've got to say, this is an earlier edition motor. It's still got the DJI branding on it, and I said that they've changed it all. And I have read or heard, I'm not sure if I can verify this, but some of the newer motors have got refined internals to reduce that rattle. But I've got to go on what I've got here. This is one of the noisiest and most rattly bikes that I've ridden in a long time, and it does annoy me. Now, the suspension feel on this bike I really do like. It's nice and supple off the top, progressive enough to stop any bottoms out. It's not quite as sensitive as a 4-bar off the top, I don't think, and certainly some of that braking stuff, when you're braking over chunky stuff, I do find the VPPs can't move quite as freely under braking. It's just a characteristic of this kind of suspension. But it wasn't until I got onto the Bullet that I kind of noticed under braking on some of the steeper stuff, the suspension seems to track a little bit better on those 4-bar systems compared to VPP. Another thing is the VPP limits the seat post insertion. I would love to run a 240 dropper on this, but I can't. The most I can fit in is a 210. The seat tube insertion is just limited by the shock going through the underneath the seat tube. So to wrap up the video, Crestline have done an amazing job on getting these bikes out. They did a brilliant job with the Bosch bike. They got these bikes out super quick. They're out in the wild. People are taking delivery of them. There's only 100, so it's very, very limited, but there are more coming. And this honestly is one of the most epic bikes I've ridden. Big travel, removable battery, looks like a normal bike. Loads of adjustment options with chainstay and reach and all that stuff. I just want a quiet bike. This irritates me so much, this noisy, rattly motor. And I do hope that DJI Avinox can sort it out and produce something that doesn't rattle as much. And I do think some of that is down to the characteristics of VPP as well. I don't think it will apply to every bike. I think that some of that chain growth that you get pulls on the chainring a little bit and amplifies that rattling sound. And I think I'm only more sensitive to this because Bosch brought out their new motor and it's ultra, ultra quiet on the descents. But the pros of the bike for me definitely outweigh those cons. I'm super interested in trying the XL. That's really the right fit for me because I need that longer front center. This is like so close to being just right, but not quite, even with that reach adjust. So hopefully we'll get one of those soon. I can build that up and test that. Let me know your thoughts and questions on this bike and pop them down in the comments, and I will catch you real soon.